Car hums along, snow's in the air. Granny's house is waiting, love everywhere. The lights on the porch, they twinkle and shine. This Christmas magic, it feels so divine. Papaw's laugh booms from his old kitchen chair. Granny's got him and her salad's prepared. Oh, Granny's house, it's the place to be, with a kid's table buzzing, just my cousins, brothers, and me. The Christmas tree sparkles, gifts all around. Granny's house at Christmas, where joy is found.
Cousins are giggling, I'm cracking a joke. The kids' table wobbles, but it never broke.
Granny's famous salad, it tastes so true. Ham on my plate and the laughter grew. We play in the snow till the grown-ups call us for dinner, but the sound of our laughter's a sweet refrain. Hop out, tell stories, the fire burns bright. Granny's house is our heart on a cold winter night. Oh, Granny's house, it's the place to be, with a kid's table buzzing, just my cousins and me. The Christmas tree sparkles, gifts all around. Granny's house at Christmas, where joy is found.
Welcome everybody to a bonus episode of Tales from the 90's. If you've never seen the Tales from the 90's podcast, it's just I pick a month in a year and I go back to the 90's and just talk about everything going on then. But the bonus episodes are reserved for different, whatever topic I come up with. Usually I come up with them a couple months in advance. Sometimes I just come up with it that week. Actually, speaking of that, before we get into this, I'm not exactly sure what January's bonus episode is going to be. So if you want to leave a comment, like anything that I should talk about, it could be anything. It don't have to be in the 90's, because that's what this is for. Whether you want me to rank certain things or just talk about certain things, you can check out on my, whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or listening on Spotify, you can check out the ones I've already done. But just if you guys want to have any input in it, and if I pick your topic, I'll definitely give you guys a shout out. But I hope you guys had if you're watching this when it came out, I hope you guys had a good Christmas. That's pretty much the theme of this one. Last year's bonus episode around this time, me and my wife talked about our favorite Christmas memories. It was a really good podcast. This year, because I didn't want to just talk about the same thing again, it has something to do with that. But this is more focused on my Granny and Papaw Jesse's house, my mom's parents, my mom's mom and dad, if I can talk. And I actually written a book. It's not like a huge book, and I never published or anything. Just wrote it on my computer. Well, typed it, I guess. Technically, you say. It's a 20-page book, and it's called Over the River and Through the Woods. And of course, that's based on that old Over the River and Through the Woods, to Grandmother's house we go, because we did go over a river, and we didn't go through the woods, but there was plenty of woods around there. So anyway, I was trying to come up with a title, and that's the title I came up with. But anyway, in all seriousness, this place was like extremely special. And like I said, I wrote a book. This is about, I think, 2014 I wrote this. So this is about 11 years ago. 12 maybe when you're watching it, I don't know. You could be watching this in July. You're like, what do I care about Christmas? But that's the good thing about YouTube. You can watch stuff anytime, or Facebook or Spotify, whatever you watch or listen on. But anyway, I decided to actually read this book, so I'll be doing a lot of this, looking over at the computer. So if you're listening, it don't matter. If you're watching, sorry, I won't be looking at the screen all the time. But I haven't read this since I wrote it back in like 2014, so I don't know what exactly remember everything in there, but I'll try to expand on some things, maybe some newer things that I thought of talking about. It's like I said, it's a really special place, and like I won't talk too much about it now. I'll just kind of get into it. Like I said, I know it's weird. I'm just reading a book that I wrote, but it's what I do on here basically. Before I was doing podcasts, just getting all my feelings down about things I'm nostalgic for. Which is pretty much what this whole podcast is for. I'm not trying to say that nothing today is special, nothing today is good. It's just everybody's gonna be nostalgic, and it's okay to be nostalgic as long as you don't like completely shun the present. I mean, I do that with music, but that's another point. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, today, I don't care about today's memories. The people I'm around now don't care, don't matter, because I guarantee you I'll feel just as nostalgic about the stuff today and 20 or 30 years from now. Maybe not hold it as the highest regard, because everybody, as long as you didn't have a complete crappy childhood, you always hold that time period as like your favorite. And of course I had some bad times, and I don't even know if I go into that in this. Like I said, it's been forever since I wrote this. But, even with the bad times, I'm the type of person that likes to think more about the good things that have happened. I try to live my life positively. A lot of people know me like, you do? I try, I should say. Sometimes the bad things will bog me down. Not as much recently. Not trying to cause anybody any problems, although if I do, I really don't care. Last 3 or 4 years after since giving my heart and my life to Jesus, I really have become a different person as far as like I worry less. I just trust in God more. Even when things are going wrong, I don't say, why are you doing this? I just, either this is a test, or maybe I've done something to cause this, or, like I said, not trying to get too off topic here, but, this life is like, I was thinking the other day, it's like, the amount of time you spend in this life is like takes up the world of like a needle, like, find a needle in a haystack type of thing. Well, that's the amount of time you spend on this earth, and the whole rest of the earth is the eternity you get to spend. So, like I said, I'm not trying to change the topic here. It's just trying to get to the point here. I take forever to get to the point on this podcast, if you can't tell. But that life has a way of changing you, but you still, when you go back to these times, you get those feelings of back then, and everybody always wishes they could go back to this time, but even if you could, like, you get in a time machine, if you went back to it at that age, you wouldn't be able to appreciate it. It's only if you like go back like now and just observe things, almost like the speaking of Christmas, the Christmas, I can't think of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, with the ghosts of the past, present, and future. When Scrooge goes back into the past and is able to observe things. Of course, he's observing all the some good things that he misses, and it's like, if you could just go back and observe that. But I have a feeling if you did that, like once you go back to the present, you'd feel even worse. You're like, man, I really wish I was living then. But anyway, that's enough of this 12,000 minute intro. I'm gonna get to reading the book now, and if you're watching this and you're not in my family, it may not interest you. Some of the stuff I'll talk about, you might not have any clue what I'm talking about, but hope you listen to it anyway, or watch it, whatever you're doing, and hopefully it makes you guys think of similar things that have happened, because or similar places like this, especially around the holidays. If you have a place that you went to a few times and you enjoyed it, whether it was with family or some families will go out to eat at a Chinese restaurant, because those are, I'm not trying to be racist or anything like that. It's just like those are normally the only ones that are open on Christmas, which is completely fine. There's a lot of people that don't have people to spend with and or want to go out and eat, but I'm saying maybe that's a memory you have, or maybe you have an annual Christmas football game or something, whatever you guys did. Hopefully this brings back some of those memories. Anyway, like I said, this is called Over the River and Through the Woods, and apparently when I wrote this I was trying to be fancy because I wrote a foreword. I had to put it on there, foreword, like I was going to publish this or something. I don't know, I might. But anyway, this book would not be possible without the love and support of my family. First, I have to give special thanks to my brother Travis, whose idea spawned this book, which I didn't remember, but I definitely don't doubt that. He was probably talking about going over to Granny's house and everything, and it just probably got my wheels turning and everything. Next, I have to thank my other siblings who have experienced this joy with me, Josh, Clint, and Emily. I need to also thank Natalie. Even though you've never got to experience the magic of the place I'll be writing about, this book is as much for you as it is for the rest of us. I'll probably be messing up my words here more than I normally do. While we'll all be reliving memories, you'll be experiencing them for the first time. This is me talking to my youngest sister, Natalie, who never got to... I can't remember when my granny moved, if Natalie was born yet or not. I don't think she was, or if she was like a baby and would never have remembered anything from there. But I only hope my simple words can do this place justice. I also want to thank the other people who I've shared experiences with in this place. To my sisters Jody, Becky, and Jamie, although I don't remember much during our time together in this house, it is documented on the home video my grandpa Wally made for my granny to have, which he gave to me around the age of 14. I still have it and have recently uploaded it to YouTube, where hopefully it will be remembered forever. And that's not a shameless plug, it is on there. I'll probably share that to Facebook just because it's around my birthday, which I don't know if I get into in this, but my birthday's 2 days before Christmas. So, and I'll probably say it in here, but we always went over there Granny's house on Christmas Eve later on. So it was always around my birthday time, Christmas. It all runs together. To all my cousins, I want to say thanks, and I know you all have your own memories of this place as well as the ones we've shared. The cousins I spent the time with most there were Jessica, Mallory, and Adam. We had so many great holidays there. There are many aunts, uncles, cousins, and other family members that were a part of my childhood that I would also like to thank. To my loved ones who have passed on, I also thank you even though you're no longer here to read this. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank my mom. It goes without saying that if you had never brought me into this world, I've never gotten to go to this magical place so many times. I would have loved to experience it through your eyes as you were growing up, because I believe that I think she lived there all her life. I think that was where she was born. I don't know if she was born in the house, but you know what I mean. If I'm wrong and you're listening to this, Mom, let me know. But I think that you lived there since you were born. I know that some of these memories may seem too inconsequential, I'm trying to use big words here, to some, but I think that any memory that you make that makes you smile is worth remembering. My hope from this book, and I put in quotations, or whatever it will become, is that maybe add to it if something comes up that I forget to include in here. Well, I may do that later, but I'll definitely add on here. However, I think it would be great if my brothers, cousins, or anybody who ever spent any time at this place could someday add stories in this story, either themselves or through me. And if you want to leave in any of those in the comments, it would be great just to, get some of your memories. In the end, this story is all of ours, just seen through different eyes. And then, I separated it into chapters. It's just funny looking back at something you wrote like 11 years ago. And if I remember correctly, I think I might have been in college then, so I was definitely in the writing mode. You know how, I don't know if you've ever been in college, especially online college, where you got to get certain numbers. You just, you go from starting, this is a side note, you go from starting college to be like, this is a 700-word essay? I can't even think of 200 to me later getting actual strikes against my grade for going over like a 5,000-word essay. Like I went over and I got in trouble for it. It's like, I get in trouble for doing, like, you should get extra credit at least. But anyway, chapter 1 is called The Trip There. There are certain things in life that none of us remember, such as the first time we opened our eyes to stare at our mother. Oh geez, I'm really trying to go story-wise here. Sorry, I'll quit interrupting so much. This is the first time we opened our eyes to stare at our mother, or even the first time we went home from the hospital. Then there are certain things that we'll always remember, such as our first kiss, our best friends, and the best times we had as a teenager. I do not remember the first time I saw the greatest place on earth, but I sure remember every detail about that place. I even remember how to get there. While I visited this place, traveling from many different locations, the way I remember the best is from the years 1993 to 1998. This is the period I lived in Norwood, Ohio. I lived most of the time at, sorry if anybody lives there, I'm giving the addresses. This is when I lived there. 5720 Section Avenue, the second to last house in Norwood. And if you've seen any of my podcasts, I explain how that is. And we actually lived, before this, we lived the house next door, so we lived in the last house in Norwood for a time. Anyway, this was a bad part of town. However, the dangers outside paled in comparison to the dangers inside the house. Oh, that's a good thing. The siren going off. I'm about to talk about Marky Foe. You don't know that dumb siren goes off every day at noon just to test it. Anyway, didn't have a siren back there. But anyway, I looked ahead a little bit. I don't actually think I talk about Marky Foe much yet. But anyway, what was the last thing I read? So the dangers inside the house. I do not want to pollute this story with too much negativity, but I think the context that is presented shows why the greatest place on earth was not just special, but it was special to anyone who ever spent any time there, but was almost a beacon of hope to me and my brothers. By now, I'm sure you're wondering what the greatest place on earth is. And by the way, before I get into that, the dangers inside the house, everything, it was stupid. I've told a million times about Marky Foe, the stepdad from hell. I won't get into any of like the negativity and stuff. I've talked about that 9,000 times. Unless I talk about it more in the book, it's just explaining, put that in there, explaining, why it was so special to go there. Not just during Christmas time, but sometimes we go over there for the weekends. We go over there for a few weeks during the summer. Just I don't know how much I get into about that later on in this, but anyway, we'll continue with the story. I'm sure to many that the moniker "the greatest place on earth" is synonymous with Disney World. To be fair, it may be the greatest place on earth to many. However, I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland or any of them. However, by the greatest place on earth, I encourage you all to sit and think a while about where that place would be for you. I'm sure most of you would think first about islands full of sunshine and the ocean breeze, or maybe about a place of significance such as a historical country or even a spectacular event such as the Super Bowl or the World Series. However, in your heart of hearts, if you really dig deep inside yourself, you'll see that the greatest place on earth really is not about the actual land or attraction, but it is more about the memories that you make at that place. For me, my brothers, my cousins, and my mom, that place would be my granny's house. So what made this place so special? I'll try my best to explain that later on in the story, but first I want to talk about my first memories of the house that will forever be located at 6929 Lawyer Road in Newtown, Ohio, Claremont County, just in case you didn't know. With today's technology, you would think all it would take for me to get my fix of seeing this great place is just to visit Google Maps. However, doing so will surely result in a bout of depression, and it does. And I'm sure that those feelings exist in all of us who have cherished this place. The reason for this depression is not simply no longer being able to visit this place, or the two great human beings who owned it. That alone is enough to crush us, and it is. Further making it worse is the fact that the people who bought the house did not just simply move it. Point blank, they destroyed everything by tearing down the house, changing the landscape, and building a new house. And they literally tore down the house, changed, I think where my grandpa had his garden up on the hill was where their house is now, and I think they cut that out. I haven't even been on Google Maps to see it in 5 or 6 years. I'm afraid to go look now. It'll look even different somehow. But, it's definitely depressing to look on there. And it'd be one, if, you can't, just looking on Google Maps don't always, I see, but sometimes it brings back good feelings. Or you can look at that now, maybe they painted it a different color, or, maybe where this tree was started, it came all the way up or something. But no, it's unrecognizable. I recognize there was two ways to get in. There was a driveway, and it looped all the way around, but it was like, farther here and farther here. But you could see, I think you could, unless that's changed too, I think you can see that they're probably paved now, but it was like a gravel driveway. It's just, anyway, I'll continue with the story. My first memories of the house and my grandparents are helped out tremendously by a video recorded by my other grandpa, Grandpa Wally. Now let me preface this by saying that I do not mean that he was not as important as the grandparents who owned this house. And I had to put that in because I wrote that and I was like, well, my other grandpa, I didn't want to make it seem like he wasn't important at all. In fact, all 4 of my grandparents are special to me and equally influential on my life, and that's still 100% true. My Grandpa Wally and Grandma Lois are my dad's mom and dad. I lived with them for a good part of my early childhood as well in Price Hill, Ohio, at 3642 Warsaw Avenue. And I think that's the right address, I'm pretty sure. My grandparents and uncle lived on the second floor of what used to be a flower shop. And the bottom floor was a flower shop, and the top 2 were apartments. Today is a cell phone store. And I put in parentheses, what else? Because back then that was like everybody was putting in a cell phone store. It's probably gone now. It's probably a vape shop because that's what takes over 9,000, or a Dollar General. It's a Dollar General probably. But I have many memories of this place. However, that will be in a book where I talk about my whole life more. And I have written like most of my life story out, but I don't know if I'll ever read it. I may read. I think I read like a small chapter about the Marky Faux thing in one of my podcasts, like an earlier one. But anyway, I say anyway, and then we hear back to the original story. I was living above my grandparents on the 3rd floor with my mom and dad. This is probably the only memory I have of my parents together on this videotape. And that was what I was talking about, was that tape my Grandpa Wally shot of my 3rd birthday. Tape starts with me arriving at my Granny and Papaw's house. My granny's name was Willa Mae, and my Papaw's name was Jesse. I believe both of them originally came from Tennessee. I think that's true. I know my granny did. My granny had been married previously to an abusive husband who she told me was at one time a boxer and was in prison. My granny already had 2 children, my Aunt Virginia and my Uncle Paul, whom I don't even remember if I ever met him. I may have, but if I did, it was when I was very young. Who moved to Louisiana, who I think I only met a couple times. I'm jumping ahead in the story. My granny and Papaw together had 3 children, my Uncle Dale, my Aunt Wilma, and my mom. The house they lived in is also the same house my mom grew up in and has told me many stories of riding a bike and hurting her leg. I'm sure that house had even more significance to her than it did to me. Back to my home movie. I arrive in the gravel driveway with my Grandpa Wally, Grandma Lois, and Mom and Dad. Since this was my 3rd birthday party, we had members from both sides of the family. It was actually quite the large party for a 3-year-old. This party were my Aunt Wilma and her husband John, and my cousin Jessica. My other 2 cousins hadn't been born yet from Aunt Wilma. Also, my cousin from my dad's side of the family, Valerie, was there. There were also my sisters who my dad had before he met my mom, Becky, Jody, and Jamie. With them was their sisters, Maggie and Allie. As I arrive, I walk up the large set of steps and come into the house through the familiar sliding glass door. I won't bore you with the rest, but I opened presents and watched wrestling that my Uncle John and Dale were watching during the party, which is my first memory of ever watching wrestling. Who knows, if they would have been watching fishing, I might have been a professional fisher. I don't know. Anyway, why is this significant? Because I grew up with 2 different memories of the house. The earlier memories are of the house having blue siding, and sometimes as I got older, they had the siding replaced with the tan siding. From what I've been told about the house, it was originally just a small farmhouse that was converted into a larger house later on, but still way before I was born. I believe the original part of the house was the kitchen, and it shows because it definitely looked older. Yeah, I remember the tile on the kitchen floor and just like the walls. You can tell it was different than the other rooms. The other rooms were more modern looking, more modern for the 80s and 90s. But yeah, that you can tell like that kitchen was definitely an original part of the house. Once I'd gotten older and my parents had separated, we moved around to many different places. The place I had the most memories from was in Norwood. And I should mention we also lived at Granny's, like, I think 2 separate times. 2 or 3, I can't remember. At this place I'm talking about. Anyway, back to Norwood. No matter how bad things got, and they got pretty bad, I knew that I could always look forward to those trips to Granny's, which were not just limited to the holidays. Sometimes we would go over to take her to the store, especially after my Papaw Jesse died. Other times, one of us would be lucky enough to get to spend the night, and we would all go for the ride. Yeah, because when one of us went over there, I mean, all the kids went. The kids that didn't get to stay, like when Josh got to stay and I didn't get to stay, I was like, man, I want to stay. But anyway, I'm skipping ahead of myself here. Literally, like this next sentence is what I just said almost. Those rides back either as we dropped off my brother Josh or after I'd spent the weekend there, feelings I've ever had. Just knowing I was leaving a place of peace, happiness, and love to go back to a place, sorry about the negativity, but a place with a man who did everything he could to make my life miserable was enough to make me cry on the way home, and I often did. However, on the way there, nothing but thoughts of happiness would fill my mind. My granny lived in a small town in Claremont County known as Newtown. She lived on Lawyer Road in a very rich neighborhood. At least I believe it was. There were many Cincinnati Reds and Bengals players that would actually live next to her over the years. My dad told me that. I believe one of my favorite field goal kickers of all time from the Bengals, Doug Pelfrey, even lived over there. However, she really only talked to her neighbor known as Pat on the Hill. Make sure I didn't get a message. Okay, I did get a message, but anyway, sorry, back to Pat on the Hill, because she lived behind them on a hill. That was one of her best friends, Pat. I can't remember her husband's name, but they were friends too. I can't remember. Mom, if you're listening, what was Pat's husband's name? We would drive the familiar way, and there were many sights along the way that let us know we were getting closer and closer. None of these sights any better than when we made the turn and crossed the Little Miami River about to pull into Newtown. We would pass the United Dairy Farmers, and to the right and down the road a ways was the baseball field where I played t-ball. But if you took a left turn, you'd go to Mount Carmel, where I lived and went to school the second and third grades. I had my first love at third grade, as you can call it, our neighbor Cynthia. However, continuing, and I don't even remember if I even told her, so it's not like she probably even knew. Like I said, third grade love, you just think it's everything, and then later it's like, what the heck? But anyway, however, continuing on, we'd pass the Newtown Park, and not too far on, we would make the left-hand turn on the Lawyer Road where Granny's house was the first house on the right. The gravel driveway was actually a horseshoe. See, I always get ahead of myself. Horseshoe shape, so you could pull into either part. See, I don't remember what I put into the book. You can tell I haven't read it before this, in years. So I don't want to leave anything out. So sometimes I may say something and then later I'll read it. But anyway, depending on the year, you would find one of three things in the driveway, excluding the times other relatives were over. The earliest memories I have are of my Papaw Jesse's brown car, and I don't remember what make it was, but I guarantee it was a GM. My Papaw Jesse was rich, at least to us kids he was. I don't know if he was or not, but he did work at the GM plant in Norwood until it closed down, which was a huge blow to the city at the time. He was a victim of a company being too cheap. It had to move to Mexico to continue making cars, apparently. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but you see it happen with every other company. However, I believe in his severance package there was some clause where he would get a brand new car, and it is because of that my all-time favorite car has to be a red 1996 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, still to this day. I remember him keeping this car spotless even 2 years into owning it. I remember that new car smell and how cold the car got because of the air conditioning on one of the occasions they came and picked me up for the weekend, or the summer. Especially the summer, because, that's when the air would be on the most. The third thing you'd find the driveway under the carport that he bought to protect the new car was the saddest of all, and that was nothing. Oh, I didn't realize I was getting that deep. My Papaw Jesse lost his life to cancer in the late 90s, and life would never be the same. I do not think my granny ever fully got over it, and her health would begin to decline over the next several years. And by nothing, I mean no car there. I can't remember who got the car. I want to say my Uncle Dale, maybe Aunt Wilma, but I can't remember if it might. I think it went to one of them, but I can't remember. I'm thinking it was Uncle Dale, but anyway, because because I always dreamed of someday get my license and be able to drive that car. Still ain't got my license, and that's my own dumb fault. We just haven't done it. But anyway, yeah, that, like I said, that third sight of nothing being there is like the worst. However, when he was alive, my Papaw Jesse could usually be found sitting in the kitchen listening to the radio, usually bluegrass music. About the only time he would watch television was when the Atlanta Braves were on TBS. It is from him I got to know some of the great Braves from the 90s. And of course, the Braves in the 90s, one of the greatest, right up there with me as the Big Red Machine in the 70s and some of those Yankees teams. If you're a baseball fan, you know how truly great these teams were. Being a lifelong Reds fan during my lifetime, I have not had much to celebrate in the way of World Series victories outside of 1990, and 14 years later, still the same, when I was really too young to appreciate what it meant. Same with the last time the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, minus the 2021. We might get back there this year. It's a chance, but anyway. However, he got to enjoy the Braves winning seemingly division title after division title and World Series. The kitchen was another way into the house that was up on a hill. The house was on a hill with the giant porch that was supported with wooden beams I was always afraid would one day come crashing down. And who knows, if the house had still been up, they might have. However, that did not stop me and my brothers from running all over that porch or riding our play tractors on it. The kitchen was around back, and I could still remember that kitchen very fondly. The kitchen was where my granny made many meals that I loved. Besides the obvious ones that I'll get into much later as Thanksgiving and Christmas. My two favorite things she made us were homemade French fries and little pizzas she would buy, and my brothers and I would seemingly eat 1.5 million of them. Can't find those pizzas anywhere. It's not the same like little pizzas you see like the regular microwave. It's a certain type, and they were like a little smaller and just like cheese pizzas, but they were so good. Also in the kitchen is this cabinet that was in the corner of the counters. It had this unique, almost drawer-like thing that would spin around in a 360, and you guys probably know the name of that. I just can't think of it. It had 2 shelves so you could put things on it and just turn it till you get what you wanted. I cannot tell you how many times I used to play with this, and the times I smashed my fingers in the damn thing. I swear to this day I could feel that cabinet spinning and me not getting my hands out of the way. Just in time for it to smash me and leave a blood blister under my nail. For sure. It's funny how the little things like that, which were painful, that we sometimes remember the most fondly. And that is absolutely true. Like as painful as it was, I'd give anything to go back and smash my fingers in that thing. The next room over was the dining room, where we had family meals whenever there were holidays or special occasions. I think that's the only time we ever sat at that big table was during those times. I don't think it even got used hardly. I remember we would always try to give what we thought were subtle hints to Granny whenever she was in the car with us. By subtle, they're in quotation marks. We thought they were subtle. But she was in the car with us when my mom would take her shopping to stop and get KFC. Oh my God. And I wonder why people call me KFC. And this is before any of that KFC stuff at wrestling happened. Sometimes it worked, but many times both her and my mom could tell that we were about to make our pitch for KFC and put a stop to it. I've always been... I'm going to read this on camera. I'm ending my own self here. I have always been obsessed with KFC, and one of my first troublemaking schemes came when I was still living with my mom and dad, and they stopped to get KFC to take to Granny and Papaw's to eat with them. They made the huge mistake of leaving 2 buckets of chicken in the back seat with me. Let's just say the family got to enjoy some skinless chicken, and I ended up with a stomach ache from 2 buckets of chicken worth of chicken skin. Literally, I ate all the chicken off of 2 buckets worth of chicken. And here we are today. I've got KFC ornaments hanging in my tree now. From the dining room, there were 3 ways to go, not counting going back into the kitchen. One way was out onto the porch outside, the one I was talking about with the wooden porch with the beams. Another was into my Papaw's bedroom. Yes, my grandparents had separate bedrooms. I'm not sure how long they had separate rooms. It was just normal to us kids. It wasn't that they weren't together or anything. It's just they had separate bedrooms. My papa had this really cool heated blanket with dials, and sometimes we got to take a nap in the bed. Of course, we would not sleep, instead opting to just adjust the temperature 700 times. It was something to play with. On this wall was a huge picture of Jesus that would scare the crap out of me if I were to walk past it in the middle of the night. It did for some reason. When my papa was alive, there were curtains that he pulled. However, after he died, the room stayed open, and passing it to go into the kitchen for something to drink was a trip I made with my eyes closed even when I was 14 years old. I don't know why that picture scared me so bad. I don't think it had anything to do with religion, though. On many occasions, I could see Jesus turn and look at me on those nights. I don't think I ever got to sleep. Like, I could literally see the eyes on this picture move sometimes. Like, I don't think it was haunted or anything like that. It's just, to a kid, you see that type of stuff. Besides leading into Papaw's room, the dining room also led to the door to the basement. I remember the basement being used for many things. First, to go down there, you had to use these older wooden steps that I've tripped going down many times. Once down in the basement, there was so much to explore, but never any light to do so. My papa had a lifetime worth of tools and other gadgets that I'd give anything to go back and just look at. But at the time, we had so much stuff to do, it never really crossed our minds to look through all this stuff. Also in the basement was where the laundry was done. Before my granny got more modern laundry machines, I remember helping her to use this old-fashioned washing machine. The machine had a large tub with an agitator, but to wring the clothes out, you ran it through this press that was attached that we were warned over and over could crush your hands, so we were always careful around that. And I never smashed my fingers in that, because she told us story, you could die, your arm could fall off. It scared us enough to where we believed it. And with that old thing, it might have actually been true. Built into the basement was a room where my mom and various aunts and uncles had lived at different times in their lives. It was just a small room that was built in there. Although by the time we came along, it was just used to store junk, sadly. We still like to go in there and pretend it was a clubhouse from time to time. The basement also had a door which leads outside directly underneath the huge porch. And sorry if these details are boring, but I'm sure my family likes to hear just reminds them of the layout of the house. Like I said, stuff that I remember that some may find boring. I love talking about it. Getting back to the dining room, the final way to go was the living room, which, like the siding changing color, the living room also changed how it looked over time. Originally, I had a wood-burning stove that was set in a bed of these white rocks. I still remember seeing my brother Josh standing on top of the stove having his picture taken. Later on, this would be removed and the living room would become larger. The room was probably where I spent most of my day relaxing because it had the TV. I cannot begin to describe the great feelings of comfort and warmth I feel when I see old commercials on television shows from this time period on YouTube, because it instantly transports me back to that living room, usually sitting on the couch or laying on the floor, eating our pizza and watching Nickelodeon. And I've talked many times, because on my weekly podcast I sometimes give the Saturday morning cartoon lineup, but I always give the Nickelodeon lineup for just a day out of that month. So if you guys are regular watchers or listeners, whatever you want to call it, you know my love for 90s Nickelodeon. I would watch it all, even Nick Jr., even though once they came out with Snick, Saturday Night Nickelodeon, we made sure we never missed it when we were over there, although it did cut into one of our other pastimes at night, catching lightning bugs in mason jars with holes in the lids. I don't know about you, but for everyone close to my age, do you notice there are not as many lightning bugs anymore? It's even more true now. I noticed a couple this summer, and that was about it. And only certain days. I do not know if this is actually true or just a feeling I have, but there was never as many lightning bugs as there were during those long summers of the 90s. From the living room, there was the staircase that leads to the upstairs. Like everything else, this changed as well over the time. Well, more specifically, the carpet did, and the carpet throughout the house, not just the stairs. There used to be a thin blue carpet. However, sometime after my papa died, my granny had the carpet replaced with this tan carpet that was about the softest carpet I've ever felt. Still to this day. Me and my brothers would literally do flips down the steps and never got hurt. Purposely did flips. However, if we weren't flipping, we were heading up to one of 3 rooms upstairs. Right at the top of the stairs was the bathroom with a shower that had a window that overlooked the yard. Off to either the left or right were bedrooms that all of us had used at one point or another. I've literally, when I lived there with my mom, I think my granny's bedroom was at the right. The first time I lived there with my mom, me and my brother and my mom lived in the bedroom to the left. Later, when we moved back after we left Marky Foe, I think my brothers like stayed somewhere else, but I had the bedroom all to myself to the right. But anyway, let me back to the story. I have so many memories of these rooms. However, the strangest part was the layout of the rooms. Each room had a very deep but very low ceilinged closet. It's in these closets that I discovered many things such as notebooks of journals my mom kept, as well as old Mad magazines that I bet we could get a fortune of. Not to mention, this is my first exposure to, I ain't gonna say on here, but a certain type of magazine that kids should definitely not be looking at, in the form of my Uncle Dan's old magazine from the 70s. I said Uncle Dan, I meant Uncle Dale. Sorry, my Uncle Dan is my dad's brother. Uncle Dale is my mom's brother. I got their names mixed up. But yeah, it was my Uncle Dale's magazines. Anyway, these bedrooms were also host to many wrestling matches between me and my brothers, and sometimes just me against the pillows. After exploring the house, I think it's about time we explore the outside. While I was a kid, I thought the land my grandparents owned went on forever. Now I realize they did not really own that much land, but it just seemed like they did. Behind the house on the hill was our neighbor Pat. However, if you start behind the house looking towards the hill and go to the left, you start to head down the hill. I don't know if that makes any sense. To my right was the giant hill that my papaw used to use as a garden, the one I was talking about where the house is now. I can recall many times watching him cut the grass on his tractor, and even more I can recall getting to ride it. I would sometimes ride on his lap, or if there was a bunch of us, he'd hook up the metal wagon and haul us behind it a few times. I can remember 2 of these tractors. The first one ended up in the bottoms, which I will talk about later. However, the second one is more familiar, and I even got to ride it myself a couple times. I was so nervous I was going to drive into the creek. And that's true. I vividly remember him telling me if I got into trouble that all I had to do was stand up because the seat could tell if someone was sitting on it or not, and it would kill the engine. Luckily, I never had to resort to this. Back to the garden. I cannot remember what he grew, but I remember, and it was all kinds of vegetables and stuff, but I remember him spending hours there. Back in my day, one of the biggest toys there were My Buddy dolls in the 80s. It was sort of what they based Chucky the Killer doll off of. Anyway, I love this doll. He truly was my buddy. However, after I got older, I no longer played with him anymore, and somehow he had no clothes left. My papa actually used him as a scarecrow. This is just one of the many memories I'm trying to convey to you in this story. If I seem to jump all over the place, which I do with my podcast, so you're used to that, you'll have to forgive me because oftentimes when recounting the past, one memory can lead to many others. And I'd rather get the memories out all down now in case they slip my mind. And that's kind of what I do on podcasts. Like I'll write out a little, not a script, but topics to talk about and start talking about them. And sometimes I'll jump to something else. But, if I don't talk about it now, I might not remember it ever again. My biggest fear as I get older is that I'll end up losing my memory. Not to try and jump ahead, but my granny passed away many years after this story takes place due to the heartbreaking disease known as Alzheimer's disease. I just hate to think of her not remembering who she was and how painful this was, not just for her, but all of us. This is why I'm writing this down, as I do not plan on it being a best-selling book or even really publishing it. I just want it as a reminder. God forbid I lose my memory. I just want this as a link to the past. That sidebar aside, I continue the tour of the grounds. And that's really the basis of doing the podcast too, really. And like writing my autobiography on my computer is just in case I ever, get like that or just get old and can't remember things. Hopefully it'll remind me of who I am. Hopefully it won't be like the opposite, like reading it and then I just get upset because I don't remember any of it. I hope, the Alzheimer's disease is heartbreaking. All diseases like cancer and everything are. But Alzheimer's is the one I think that affects the entire family more than probably any other disease because, it's one thing to see your loved one in pain and dying from a disease. That's horrible enough. But then they don't remember you and they get agitated that they don't remember, and it's something I would definitely not wish on anybody. But back to our story. As we walk further on after coming down from the garden, there's a huge tree. I believe it was a green crabapple tree, but I don't remember for sure. We used to play baseball all the time and hitting these things with bats and tennis rackets as well. Before we continue onward, I want to cross the street for a minute. There's a stretch of woods that I believe are owned by the town of Newtown. Not too far into these woods were the remnants of someone's treehouse that we use as yet another clubhouse. We had many of these clubhouses, as kids typically do. Well, let's cross the road once again and continue on to the famed bottoms. I do not know why they were called the bottoms, but that's what we all called them. It was a large section of field that you could get to by walking straight out or even down a giant hill from the side of the garden. Facing out from the house to the left, it was surrounded by a creek. If I knew that this wasn't in here, I was going to tell it. One time I was playing Frisbee with my brothers and new stepdad, Steve. It was after we left Marky Foe. It was my younger sister's dad, Steve. He threw me the Frisbee, and unbeknownst to me, I ran out of room and jumped into the creek, which was filled with rocks and water and was about an 8-foot drop. I never missed a beat catching it, as I fell in a move that I could never duplicate a million times if I tried. All I could think to say was, "I'm okay," as everyone surely thought I'd broken my neck or legs at the least. Somehow I landed perfectly and didn't even get a scrape. I spent a lot of time exploring every inch of that creek. Experiences like these, I feel, are something that this and future generations are getting to experience less and less. While I'm grateful for the amazing technology we now have, one of which is letting me write this so quickly, and another one is letting me film this, so definitely the technology just keeps advancing, even from 2014. I wish more kids would get out and just do things. We did so much at my granny's house, and it provided us all a lifetime of cherished memories. What did today's kids have to talk about to their children in 15 years? "Oh, when I was your age, I had this app that let me simulate playing a guitar." Or, "I used to hang out with my friends all the time when I was your age. I just typed their name and we hung out." It really is depressing to think about, but getting back to our journey, we finally made it to the much heralded bottoms. As I said, it was a large grassy field that had changed, much like the house, over time. Some of my earliest memories involve seeing my papaw's old tractor sitting at the edge of the woods. I would spend hours playing on this rusty old tractor, although in hindsight, I don't know how I didn't end up with tetanus. There was also an old truck camper that was filled with more rust and jagged metal but we all played on it anyway. Later on, my papa would build him a shed out there completely out of cinder blocks. It wasn't very big, but we'd use it as a place to store our baseball, football, and other playing equipment. Over the course of years, many baseball and football games have been played back there, mostly baseball. I have many stories of playing baseball, such as the time I could only get Josh to... I've told this before. I could only get Josh to play baseball if I agreed to pitch to him first. And of course, when I got him out 3 times, he was done. So after he was done batting, he's like, "I don't want to pitch to you." Every time I'd fall for it. But I wanted to play baseball so bad, I was like hoping maybe he'll pitch to me. Nope. Tricked me every damn time. Another time when I decided to create my own actual baseball field. I got some dirt and made a pitcher's mound. I also created bases, but the part I thought was the most genius really turned out to be the stupidest part, was when I decided to create lines on the field. Now, my dumb teenage self did not have chalk to use for this, so what did I use? You probably guessed it, a can of house paint. I swear that paint never dried. By the time it did, it rained and washed away anyway. Not to mention, did I expect it to just stay there when the grass was cut? Probably my favorite part of the bottoms was the old grapevine we all used to swing on. Man, I remember that. For those old enough to remember this, talking family here, this was always a must-do when it came to going to Granny's, as long as the weather was good. It was just an old vine that used to go between trees that we could sit or lay on and swing off of. We spent so much time doing this, I really wish life was just that simple again, and I do. Not to try and get sidetracked here, but I think the children, and especially teenagers, spend so much time wanting to be grown up that we don't get to fully enjoy being kids. As adults, we all wish we could go back to the times we loved and remember the most. And by the way, these days with teenagers, I mean all time, we all wish that we could be grown-ups until we were. But as adults, we all wish we could go back to the times that we loved and remembered the most, and this is one of those times. I would trade the internet, all my video games and DVDs, and my responsibilities for just one more day to swing on that vine. In a way, the old vine was kind of like a metaphor for our time there. While we were young, everything was carefree as swinging on the vine while it was still sturdy and strong. However, as we grew, so did the vine, or I guess you could say it got worn out. As things changed with us all, the vine changed and one part ripped down. Now we could still use the part that was left to swing out and even swing into the creek, but it was different somehow. It didn't give us the same feelings. Eventually the vine came completely off and we moved on. In my mind though, I'm always right there on that vine or waiting my turn, yelling at my brothers or cousins to hurry up, it's my turn. I hope everyone reading this, or listening to this I should say now, has a memory like this that can give them comfort even when things are going so bad you think there's nothing in the world left for you. Looking out into the woods in our virtual journey are more memories, and I have debated whether to put them in the story or into my overall life story, but I think I'll just give you the highlights here because I don't want to take that into a negative place. Simply put, these woods were where I hung out and I skipped school during my 9th grade year. And I've told that before on here. We had finally left Mark, and my mom met Steve, Emily, and Natalie's dad. We were splitting time between a hotel and my granny's house. I spent most of my time at Granny's and went to school there. It was stupid, I'll admit it, and I paid for it through having to go to court and being sentenced to community service. I would go to school on the bus and then leave before school even started. This is the school my mom went to, and I was just over know how to deal with it all, so this was my escape. And not to try to make an excuse, but that's anybody else why. I mean, that's the best thing I can come up with. Sometimes you don't know exactly why. I would leave behind the football field, and after a few hundred feet, it would lead to the woods that would be followed all the way to my granny's, probably about a mile away. I found this route almost by accident one day when me and my brothers walked to the school to play, and we explored the woods on the way home. While skipping school, I had a chair in the woods, far enough in that if someone came out in the bottoms, I would not be seen, but close enough that I could still see the bottoms. I would spend my days there either listening to music or going through my stepdad Steve's baseball cards. I didn't steal them, I just went through them and looked at them and took them back. I would, while I guess it was technically stealing, I only looked at them because I love baseball and statistics, but I always put them back. See, I jumped ahead. It was just something to do to pass the time. I remember one time, I don't know why, but I was in the bottoms during school and my granny started walking out there. It was pure luck that she didn't see me, so I climbed into the back of the old pickup camper and laid there for what seemed like hours, but was probably only minutes. I was not afraid of her in a physical way, because if she ever did whip me, I don't remember it. I was more afraid of disappointing her. I held her in such high esteem that for her to think of me as anything less than perfect was too much for me to bear. And that's true. This pretty much completes our tour of the land and the house of the greatest place I've ever known. However, there are many more memories to explore. These will not be in chronological order, so you'll have to bear with me. But just memories I have, and as will happen sometimes while driving down the proverbial memory lane. The journey can start out one way and other memories can take you in other directions, so I'll try to keep our car in the same area as we go on this journey together. Perhaps one memory that always stands out above others is the magic of the holidays. We would always go to our Granny and Papaw's house to celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. There would be a huge feast of ham and many side dishes. My granny made this salad that, I know where this is going, at the time I didn't like but would love now. She simply used Miracle Whip as a dressing, which I'd always assumed was just for sandwiches, even though it says dressing on, salad dressing on it. Anyway, my stepdad Marky Foe, would eat so much food, including 3 bowls of salad, that his nasty ass would unbuckle his pants at the table. But that was him. Man, we all ate so much during these Christmas and Thanksgiving, and sometimes Easter feasts. Probably my favorite part was the dessert. While there were many desserts, my favorite was my granny's Niller wafer pudding. Of course, banana pudding using vanilla wafers, but she called them Niller wafers. It was banana pudding made with what she called Niller vanilla wafers. I normally hated bananas, but I could eat the whole dish and try it on many occasions. These Christmases were, of course, more than about the food. As all children do, we love getting presents. I remember the year our cousins Adam, Jessica, and Mallory, and my brothers and I all got video game systems. I believe it may have been 96, 97, or 98, one of those. We got the PlayStation 1, as it's called now. We got the PlayStation 1 when it was just called the PlayStation, and our cousins got the Nintendo 64. There was always so many presents from family that I cannot remember them all, but I remember one year getting a bunch of cassette tapes for my birthday that I thought were the greatest presents of all. And like I said, my birthday was 2 days before Christmas. So usually when we go over there on Christmas Eve, notwithstanding the my third birthday party on my birthday, but normally go on Christmas Eve, I would get birthday presents in. I thought that the cassette tapes were the greatest presents of all. That was, of course, until I opened the last one, a Sony Walkman. Yes, I got a portable tape player is my greatest present of all. That'd be like today, getting a phone is the greatest present of all, I guess. I thought I died and went to heaven. Ah, yes, my birthday. My birthday is, here I go, I already talked about this 12 times already. Our birthday is 2 days before Christmas, so I'd always get a few more presents than everyone else, which drove some people nuts, my brothers. As kids, we don't really think logically, as while everyone got the same amount of presents all year with their birthdays getting recognized when they occurred, all anyone could ever think is how lucky I was for having extra presents. Speaking of my cousins, we had so much fun. I remember doing everything I could to try to make everyone laugh. I would come up with the dumbest things to do. So this is where I started. This is where Crackhead sort of started with these different characters. I would recreate the Beverly Hillbillies. I think the movie had just came out. We always watched the original series on Nick at Night. We had a Mr. Potato Head, and I put the glasses on as if they weren't hilarious enough to everyone. I would pretend to be Granny Clampett and wear my glaciers, as I called them, or however it would be pronounced in hillbilly language. I honestly cannot remember ever having any problems with my cousins. I think on some level we all envied them because they seemed to have more money than us, and always seemed like they got to go out and eat it all the time. But in reality, I'm sure they all had their share of problems and everything. But as a poor kid growing up, you always think your situation's the worst, and that ain't that true. Like I said, I didn't like, oh, my cousins are so lucky, I hate them. It was always, we always envied them, but not in a way like that made us resent them. At least for me, because we didn't always get to go out to eat, and the problems we had with Marky Foe, and it just seemed like they had to us looking, it looked like they had the perfect lives. And like I said, I'm sure they didn't. They all had their problems and everything, and then maybe they didn't. I hope they didn't. I don't want to sit there and think, well, my life is like this, so I hope they have not as good of a life. Or I wish everybody would have a perfect life. If it's not possible, but like I said, like I said, there was a little bit of envy there, jealousy, I guess you call it, but not anything to where I resented them or like, oh, look, it's Miss Perfect or anything like, nothing like that. It was always, just great times when they were around. Like I said, we envied them, but it was never at a level where we thought they were better than us. That was just not how they acted. We all had so much fun together, and I hate how we have drifted apart, and that's true too. A big reason for this is, of course, we live so far apart. The only time we ever got to spend any time together was a rare time or two at their house for a birthday party or at our Granny and Papaw's house. I had some great memories with my Papaw. However, looking back, there were many bonding experiences we had that time I did not even fully understand. Many of these times is when we would be listening to one of his favorite bluegrass songs and call me in to listen. Now, I love country, but did not have much experience or appreciation for bluegrass music, so I did not particularly see what he liked about it so much, but I wish I could go back. I would sit there and listen all day if I could. After he died, I got a collection of bluegrass tapes he recorded, and I wish I still had these because they made me feel closer to him. We also had many great memories outside. My Papa was a quiet man and did not express much emotion around us, but you could tell he loved us all. I remember him making a bow and arrow for my brother Josh, and they would spend hours outside shooting at trees, as I would most likely be inside watching Inspector Gadget or Double Dare. I have many more memories of my granny due to her living longer, as well as the time I spent taking care of her. She had surgery, and I cannot remember what it was for, but I know that at the time I was living with my grandpa Wally and dad in Price Hill. I think it was around the 2000s, a little bit like 2001, maybe 2, something like that. She had surgery, and I stayed with her as she recuperated. We would watch many hours of TV together. I remember watching Alf in particular, as we would not miss it at 5 p.m. every weekday. I also have great memories of going with Granny to Tennessee to visit her sister. Her daughter and my Aunt Virginia drove us, and I spent most of the trip listening to my Walkman in the back seat. This was the summer of 1998, right before my mom left my stepdad. I remember this because when we got back, I stayed an extra day since it was too late to take me home, and she let me order ECW Heatwave 1998, a wrestling pay-per-view. I remember that one. I suppose our trip is over now. As I finished this telling of my version of the story, I'm filled with the same sadness as I am always filled with when I left Granny and Papaw's house. Although the house and the people who made the house special are gone and the landscape has literally changed, I know that all I have to do is close my eyes and I'm transported back there. I hear in the background an old familiar sound. It's the start of Nickelodeon Double Dare. I'm carrying a plate with those little pizzas as a bluegrass song plays across the kitchen where my Papaw sits drinking one of his Pabst Blue Ribbon beers. I thank Granny for the pizza and go running off to the living room to watch some more great television on this familiar blue carpet. Life does not get much better than this. And that's where our story ends. A few things that I didn't put in there that I remember. I just remember like whenever it would snow, like during Christmas, we'd be over there for Christmas Eve, like especially at night, because I mean usually we get there around 4 or so it's already starting to get dark, but especially at night when we go to leave, the snow would just be so sparkly, and I don't see that anymore. I don't know if that's like the lightning bug thing where it just doesn't happen, or if it's just the area, less pollution, I don't know, but the snow was so sparkly. And like I said, like I said, a lot of memories there. I hope you guys have places that you remember like that. Let me know in the comments if you do. Also, let me know your ideas for a January bonus episode. It could be about anything. But like I said, this, it's fun. It's kind of bittersweet to read that, because you go down the rabbit hole of I wish I could still go there. Both literally to visit the house, but also the people. I wish there was like somehow there could be one more year of not just going back and observing it, but like one more year of just all together there, sharing our experiences, laughing about old times, and but that can't be done, obviously, and that's the way the world is. I get that, so I can talk about it on here and do that virtual trip back there, and maybe one day I will do the same about my grandpa's apartment where we lived at. The problem with that is I don't have many memories of that. I think the last time I was there was like 7 or 8. I have a bunch of home videos there that luckily I get to look at and post on here. But as far as it's like the memories themselves, I don't have many of those. But there's lots of places you spend your life at that you have good and bad memories. But like I said, the only bad memories I have from Granny's house is like me being stupid and skipping school. But other than that, like, things are just great there. It was so much love, so much fun. Loved getting to hang out with our cousins and just joking around and acting goofy. And like I said, there was never any kind of jealousy with them or anything. At least on our part, I don't think. I don't know if they were jealous of us. There's a problem. But I always remember my cousins fondly. Like I said, I wish we could have had more time to get to do things together, or we lived closer or something. But and of course, my brothers and Emily didn't have much. Emily didn't have much experience there. She would be actually, but especially Josh, Travis, and Clint was younger, but he still has. I believe he still has a few memories. But I think the ones that remember this the most out of my brothers would be definitely Josh and Travis. And of course, Mom, if you're listening to this, I just can't imagine what it was like growing up there, and I'm sure you've seen the landscape in the house change even more than I did. But hopefully this brought back some good memories to the people that experienced it, and not too many sad memories. Of course, you talk about the old times, especially with Granny and Papaw Jesse passing away. Of course, you're going to get the sad memories too. But hopefully there's enough happy memories in this to leave you guys feeling, good about it. And like I said, any experiences you guys had there that I don't remember, please let me know. I love hearing about stuff that either I was a part of or maybe not even a part of. Like maybe you guys spent maybe my cousins spent the weekend over there, and this happened, or they remember something about we did that I don't even remember at all. But and if you're listening to this and you're not related to me, and you're still listening, I thank you for getting to the end, and hopefully it was entertaining enough to keep you guys entertained, and hopefully I painted good enough picture of what this place is like and what it meant to us. And like I said, if you got that place, and you still got a place like that, cherish it every single moment you get there, because you never know literally when those people are going to be gone. And sometimes even you think, oh, a house ain't going to be gone, and literally sometimes a house can be gone, and a landscape can be changed. And like, I wish that house was there. I would go today and get a picture in front of it, and maybe do one of them things where you can maybe the owners would let you walk through and just look around or something. I know that sounds weird these days, but you see that sometimes on like TV. I don't know, but I know that in my mind I can see it the way it was, and I'm tired, but just I hope you guys had it, like I said, a good Christmas if you're watching this around when it came out, or next time Christmas or any holidays come up and you're gonna you decide whether should I go be with family, or go be with family, because you never know when it's gonna be the last. Not trying to be dark, but you never know when it's gonna be the last time you can get with people in your family to share memories like that. If you still got family around and you're able to get there and do things with them, do it, because later on you'll have even more memories if you want to talk about them. Don't just relive the old memories, but try to make new ones as well. I know on a nostalgic podcast that sounds like blasphemy, like, no, we only talk about the old times. But yeah, if you got a chance to make some newer memories, make them, because even something like today, maybe your parents moved to a new house last year and you don't have many memories of it. Someday, 20 years from now, you'll be wishing for those days back that you just passed up. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling all over the place. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's definitely a lot different than anything I've done, especially just reading straight out of a book that I wrote. But so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.